morning children and welcome back to your chemistry class. Today in this chemical kinetics we are going to talk about the integrated equation for first order gas phase reaction. So let us consider the general gas phase equation, like for example your reactant which is in its gaseous state on heating gives the product which are also in their gaseous form, right? So let's see what will be the initial pressure. Initial pressure, let it be P naught for the reactant, this much atm, and for the product it is 0, right? Then your pressure after time T, it becomes what? For your reactant it becomes P naught minus pressure after time T. And what about the product? It will be P atm and P atmosphere, and for product C it will also be P atmosphere. Now what should be the total pressure of the reaction mixture after time T? If you check from this, the P after time T, the total pressure of the reaction mixture after time T, this will be equal to what? Initial pressure minus P plus P plus P plus P plus P. So this will be equal to what? Initial pressure plus the pressure atmosphere, right? So your P will be equal to what? PT, this pressure after the mixture after time T. This P will be equal to what? PT minus initial pressure, right? Now pressure of A after time T, what it will be? PA will be equal to P naught minus P, okay? P naught minus P, this will be equal to what? P naught minus, what is your P? Your PT minus P naught. So this will be equal to what? If you open the bracket, you get 2 P naught minus PT, right? Now if we substitute these values in your first order reaction, do you remember your first order reaction where K is equal to 2.303 upon T log A naught upon the A, right? So what do we get over here? K will be equal to 2.303 upon T log initial pressure upon, what is the concentration of A? 2 P naught minus PT. So this is how we get the equation for the first order gas phase reaction. Okay. Now let us talk about half-life for the first order reaction. Half-life, that is T1 by 2 for first order reaction. Okay. Now, what do we mean by half-life? It may be defined as the time required for half of the initial amount to the reactant, right? So when X is equal to A by 2 and your time is equal to T1 by 2, right? Then what do we see? K, the rate constant, is equal to 2.303 upon T 1 by 2 log A upon A by 2, right? So this will be equal to how much? 0.693 upon half life. Okay, so your K is equal to what? Your rate constant is equal to 0.693 upon half life. So this proves that half-life period for first order reaction, it is independent of the concentration term. I hope this is very clear to you. Now if we look at the graph, okay, this is your concentration initial and this is your half-life that we show. Then your first order reaction will be a straight line parallel to your initial concentration. Okay, parallel to your initial concentration. Now remember that your half-life of the reaction, it depends on the initial concentration of the reactant, that is AO, right? How? In this manner, T half-life, it is directly proportional to 1 upon the initial concentration to the power n minus 1, where your n is always your order of reaction. I hope this much is very clear about half-life. Now next we move to how to evaluate the rate constant of the first order reaction. Evaluation of K of first order reaction. So there are different methods. The first method is for different time interval, if your A minus X value, right, and the initial concentration of the reactant is known to you. What did I say? The value of A minus X is known to you, and also the initial concentration, that is AO, is known to you of the reactant. Then the value of K can be calculated. And remember, if the value of your K in each case comes out to be constant, then the reaction is said to be of the first order. Clear? The first method is clear. Then the second method is called as the graphical method. That is, with the help of graph also we can evaluate rate constant. So look at the formula first, then I'll show you the graph over here, where Kt upon 2.303 is equal to log A minus X. Okay, so your log A minus X can be equal to minus this, you bring it over here, Kt upon 2.303 plus log A, right? So now if we look at the graphs, carefully. This is your time t and this is your log A minus X. Okay, and suppose this is the concentration over here and this is your log A. Then you get a straight line like this. I hope you can see the straight line like this, and this slope is equal to minus K 2.303, right? So with the help of this slope, this graph, we can also calculate the rate constant. Another one could be, this is your time and this is your log A upon A minus X, right? Then you are going to see the graph here, and this slope is equal to K upon 2.303. So this is how we can calculate the value of rate constant by the graphs. Now, the third method that we need to understand, when your initial concentration, that is your AO of the reactant, is not known, then how are you going to calculate your K? Then suppose T1 is equal to what? 2.303 upon K log A upon A minus X1, right? This is for the first reaction. Then for T2 it is 2.303 upon K log A upon A minus X2. This is for the second one. Then your T2 minus T1, it is equal to 2.303 upon K log A minus X1 minus log A minus X2, isn't it? Therefore, we can say that T2 minus T1 will be equal to 2.303 upon K log A minus X1 upon A minus X2. So this is how we can obtain the value of K when your initial concentration is not known to us, of the reactant is not known to us. I hope the evaluation of rate constant is very clear for the first order reaction. Now let us understand or revise how determination of order of reactions by various methods. Okay, so three methods we have studied. First is your integration method, where you have studied about the zero order reaction and the first order reaction. So for the zero order reaction, your A is equal to what? Minus KT plus the initial concentration. And for first order reaction, it is what? K is equal to 2.303 upon T log A upon A minus X. Okay. Now second method was which one? Your graphical method, right? The graphical method for the zero order. How to recognize for the zero order? If this is your concentration of A and this is your rate at the y-axis and this is for your zero order, then you are going to get a line parallel to your concentration. Okay, then if you have to check for your first order, this is for your first order, right? So this is your concentration for your first order, remember, and this is your rate. Then in that case, this is your graph that you are going to obtain the first order reaction. I hope this is clear. And the third method is what? Your initial rate method. So what is in your initial rate method? It is used to find the order of reaction with respect to one reactant at a time. If you remember, the total order of the reaction is then equal to the sum of the orders of the reaction for the individual reactants expression, which then tells us about the actual dependence of the rate of reaction on your molar concentration of each reactant. I repeat, what did I say about the initial rate method? that it is used to find out the order of reaction with respect to one reactant at a time. Clear? The total order of reaction, it is then equal to the sum of the orders of the reaction for the individual reactants expression, which tells us about the actual dependence of the rate of reaction on the molar concentrations of each reactant. So that was how to determine the order of reaction for the various by the various methods. What were they? First was the integration method, then the graphical method, and then the initial rate method. Now let us understand the difference between the order of reaction and molecularity. This side I am writing down the order of reactions, and this side it is all about your molecularity. Now firstly, what do we mean by molecularity? It can be defined as the total number of reactant molecules that take part in a particular step or in the rate determining step of a chemical reaction. Is that clear? So what is molecularity? It is the total number of the reactant molecules which take part in a particular step of a chemical reaction, or in they are the rate determining step. Right? So how can we differ the order of reaction with molecularity? So your order of reaction, it is actually what? It is the sum of the exponents in the rate law equation, right? Whereas what did I tell you about molecularity? Why am I writing this? Molecularity, it is the total number of molecules of reactants taking part in a particular step of a reaction. Okay, so this was one difference. Then your second difference between order of reaction and molecularity is what? That the order of reaction may be a fractional value or they may be zero, right? But your molecularity, they are always a whole number but not zero, leaving zero all whole numbers. So this order of reaction may have fractional values or may be zero, right? Whereas they are always a whole number other than 0. Clear? Then the third point of difference, for complex reactions, as I had told you earlier, the overall rate of the reaction, it completely depends on the slowest step, and the overall order is also determined by the slowest step over here, whereas there is no significance of any moral molecularity for the complex reaction. In fact, it is expressed only for the elementary step. So for complex reaction, the overall rate of reaction, it depends on the slowest step, and overall order is also determined by the slowest step. Clear? Whereas here there is no significance of overall molecularity for a complex reaction. Clear? It is just expressed for elementary step. Just expressed for each elementary step, right? Then the fourth point of difference could be this order of reaction is determined experimentally. It is determined experimentally, whereas this is determined theoretically. Okay, this is determined theoretically. Then the fifth point of difference between the two, this order of reaction can change with the change in temperature, pressure, etc., whereas this molecularity of a reaction is invariable. Okay, so can change with change in temperature, pressure, etc., whereas molecularity of the reaction is invariable. I hope the difference between order of reaction and molecularity is very clear to all. Next, let us move to temperature dependence of the rate of reaction. Okay, now most of the chemical reactions, they are accelerated by increase in temperature. For example, you already know potassium permanganate, it is decolorized faster at a higher temperature than at a lower temperature, isn't it? So for a chemical reaction with rise in temperature by 10 degrees, the rate constant is also doubled, right? So for example, the temperature coefficient, which can be written as mu, this is equal to rate of constant at T plus 10 degree Celsius upon the rate of constant at T degree Celsius, right? So though collision theory is not in your syllabus, but little explanation about it has to be told over here to make you understand this temperature dependence of the rate of reaction. So according to the collision theory of chemical reactions, the rate of reaction, it completely depends upon the first point, that is the collision frequency, right, which is written as Z. Now what is collision frequency? It is the number of collisions taking place per second per unit volume of the reaction mixture, right? And secondly, it depends upon the fraction of effective collisions, right, which is referred as small f over here. That means the molecules which after collision actually they produce the products. So I hope these 2 points are clear. So effective collision, it takes place only in those molecules which have the threshold energy and proper orientation. So at large, what to explain you about temperature dependence, that increase in the rate of reaction with temperature is brought about due to 2 factors. What are those 2 factors? There is increase in the collision frequency, that is every 10 degree rise in temperature, it increases the kinetic energy by 3% only. Okay, so that was collision frequency. And then effective collision. That is, just now if you look at the graph over here, it will be clear that the fraction of the molecules that are capable of effective collision, they get doubled on increasing 10-degree rise in temperature, so that the rate of reaction also gets doubled. Clear? I hope you have understood the temperature dependence of the rate of reaction. Now we shall talk about the concept of activation energy and transition state theory. Right? Now, we know that all the chemical reactions, they do not take place at room temperatures, right? Some extra energy has to be supplied to the reactions to bring their energy, which is equal to their threshold energy to carry out the reactions, right? So this excess energy which must be supplied to the reactant, it undergoes chemical reaction. And what is that called as? It is called as activation energy, right? Which is referred as EA. So if you look at the graph over here, you will see the activation energy, it is equal to your EA, activation energy, it is equal to the threshold energy minus your average kinetic energy of the reacting molecules, which is referred as ER. Clear? So what can we say? Your activation energy EA is equal to threshold energy, which is written as T, or in some books it is written as TH. That is your threshold energy minus the activation energy, that is your ER of the reacting molecules, right? So now for the fast reactions, they have low activation energies, whereas your slow reactions, they have high activation energies. The activated complex or the transition state, if you can look at the graph over there, it is an intermediate complex which is highly unstable due to high energy. I hope it is very clear. Now, for a reversible reaction, the activation energies, they are different for the forward reaction and different for the backward reactions. So now let me rub this off and I will show you the exothermic and the endothermic reactions. So this one is your exothermic reaction, okay, and this one is for the endothermic reactions. Clear? So these are the activation energies for the forward and the backward reactions. This one is in case of your exothermic reaction, and this one is for your endothermic reactions. I hope till here it's very clear to you. Now let us understand the Arrhenius equation. It proposes a quantitative relationship between the rate constant and the temperature. How? That is, the rate constant K, it is equal to AE to the power of minus the activation energy upon R into T. Now, what is your K? As I told you, it is your rate constant. What is your A? It is your Arrhenius or the frequency, which is also termed as pre-exponential factor. Then your EA, as you know, it is your activation energy, R is your gas constant, and T is the temperature, which is always taken in Kelvin, right? Now, the value of A, it does not depend upon the temperature, as also it does not depend upon the catalyst, right? So the two quantities over here, that is your A, right, and your activation energy, they are collectively termed as Arrhenius parameters. Okay, what are they called as? The two quantities, what are they termed as? Arrhenius factor parameters, right? And the factor E minus EA by RT, it gives the fraction of the molecules having energy which is equal to or greater than the activation energy. And what is this called as? This is called as Boltzmann factor. Followed? So if we take the integrated gas constant, which is equal to integrated A minus EA upon RT, right? So we can say log K is equal to log A minus the activation energy upon 2.303 RT. Followed? This, oh sorry. This is what we get. Right? Now, for two different reactions, let us see. Suppose log K1, the rate constant for the first reaction is equal to log A minus your activation energy upon 2.303 RT1. This is for the first reaction. For the second reaction, if it is K2, then log A minus EA upon 2.303 RT2. This is the second reaction, right? Now if we subtract, subtracting your first from your second equation, then what do we get? We get over here log K2 minus K1 is equal to log A minus activation energy upon 2.303 RT2, okay, minus log A minus activation energy upon 2.303 RT1, right? So we can say that log K2 upon K1 is equal to activation energy upon 2.303 1 upon T1 minus 1 upon T2. So from this given equation, we can easily calculate the activation energy, right? Now let us see how to calculate the activation energy by the graphical method. So let me first draw the graph and then I will show you the. So if this is 1 by T this side on your x-axis and this is your log K on your y-axis, then and if this is the concentration and this is your log A, then the slope that you are going to find is something like this, right? And this slope is equal to then minus EA upon 2.303 R, right? So over here, what is the equation? Log K is equal to minus EA upon 2.303 R T plus log A. So by graphically, we are going to use this formula. So from the slope of the graph, what can we calculate? The EA can be calculated. I hope this point is very clear to all of you. Okay. Now let us understand the effect of catalyst on reaction rates. Okay. So the substance which affect the rate of reaction, they can be recovered chemically unchanged in mass and composition after the reaction. And what are they called as? They are termed as catalysts, right? They provide an entirely new path for the reaction in which the reactants, they are converted into their products very fast. So it does not shift the position of the equilibrium. Then they are highly specific in nature as well. If you look at the graph of it, you will also see that it does not change the rate of energy, and also the Gibbs energy of the reaction remains unchanged, right? So in the graph you will see that EA, if written F, what does it mean? It means it is for the forward reaction, okay? And if it is EAB, it means the backward reaction. If it is EA, where look at the graph over there, EA, it is for uncatalyzed reaction, and for E-A, it is for the catalyzed reaction. Okay, so I hope this progress of your uncatalyzed and your catalyzed reaction is clear. That is addition of catalyst. How does it provide a path of lower activation energy? And if you see the graph, that is shown by the dotted line over here, right? Now, what is the effect of the catalyst on your activation energy? So let us see over here. Suppose let the rate constant of reaction in the absence of catalyst be K1, right? And in the presence of catalyst be K2. Followed? So as the catalyst, we know, lowers the activation energy, therefore your E1 will be greater than your E2, and your K2 will also be greater than K1 at what? At constant temperature. I hope this is clear. So your log K2 upon K1, this will be equal to what? E2 minus E1 upon 2.303 RT. Okay, or this can also be written as log K2 upon K1. This is equal to delta E, that is the rate in change of energy, upon 2.303 RT. Right? Now, secondly, let your EA be the activation energy at higher temperature, that is T1, and E-A be the decrease in the activation energy barrier after adding the catalyst at lower temperature, that is your E2. Then what are we going to see? Then we will see that EA upon T1 is equal to what? EA minus E-A upon T2. Okay, so this is the equation that we obtained. Over here, remember T1 and T2, they are always in Kelvin. Okay, they always should be taken in Kelvin. So with this, we finish off with the chapter of our chemical kinetics also, and we wind up with our syllabus as well. Thank you.